Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer at The Athletic. Mercifully thankful that I was off today because I got a very early flight in the morning to New York. I'm with my co-host Eric O'Flaherty, who was mercifully glad he wasn't in the bullpen today.
Fuck. I watched the bottom of the eighth, and then I had to go pick my son up from school, and I just assumed the game was over.
Everything was great in the bottom of the eighth.
Yeah.
For those who aren't aware at this point, I'm sure you are if you're watching this podcast, but if you're watching it later and you didn't see, the Braves led 4-0 entering the ninth inning against the Marlins. Were 3 outs away from sweeping the series and heading off to New York to face the Mets for the first time this year. And the game completely spiraled. The bottom fell out on A.J. Minter. A.J., who's had a horrendous homestand, gave up 5 hits, gave up 3 runs while he was in, was responsible for the guys on base. Chavez comes in, gives up a double, 2-out double. So that was 2 more runs on A.J.'s ledger. So he gave up 5 runs in the ninth inning, and the Braves lost without recording the 3rd out, and the Braves lost 5-4. I mean, it was a shocking turn of events.
It's as bad as it gets, when you're in that role. If you're not even closing at that point, that's almost a layup, 4-0.
Yeah.
I feel for AJ right now because I've been there, and there's nothing more frustrating. I think where he's at right now, he's probably got to just be scratching his head, wondering what's wrong. The only thing I'm seeing is, and we talked about this before we started, is that, I think AJ's good when he's at the top of the zone, and he's really good when he's at the bottom of the zone, but he's been at the belt, a lot the last feels like, yesterday was good, but 4 or 5 outings, he's been at the belt a lot.
Yeah, the numbers are really kind of staggering. I mean, this is a guy that had a 2 ERA at the end of that Padres series. Got a save on April 17th at San Diego, comes home, pitches 4 times in this homestand against the Astros and Miami, 2 against each of those teams. Gave up 10 hits, 10 runs, all earned in 3 2/3 innings over 4 appearances. The one yesterday was perfect, as you said, got 2 strikeouts. The other ones were perfectly horrible. They had 2 innings against Houston, or 1 inning against Houston on 21st. What's today? The 27th. So what? Last Friday in the series opener against the Astros. Pitched an inning, gave up 2 hits, 2 runs, including a homer. First homer he's allowed this year. Came back, pitched 2 days later against the Astros, another 1 inning, blown save, gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, a walk, had 3 strikeouts, but gave up 3 hits and 3 runs in that one. Pitched a clean inning yesterday, and then today, just he was torched, man. He gave up 5 hits and 2 outs. And like you said, he was just missing so much. The velo is still 95-96, almost 96. So it's not like it's down a lot, maybe a tick, but he was missing right over the middle of the plate and up in the zone. And that's not like him at all, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, fatigue doesn't always show in your velocity. Sometimes it shows in your command.
Right.
But this is where it gets really tough, because when you've been as good as AJ's been for as long as he's been good, I mean, that's why I just shut the game off and went to pick my son up. You just figure he had a little blip and he's going to be fine. And then it happens again today. But when you've been as good as he's been, and then this starts happening to you, there's so many things that can cause it. And, me personally, I don't miss trying to figure out that puzzle one bit from my career, because I had years where I started off freaking terrible and I felt like I didn't change anything. Yeah. And then went on a tear, so it's like, this is the place for him is, do I start tinkering? Do I need to just lock in mentally? Have I let my guard down? Have I got too comfortable? Do I need to focus more and make freaking pitches? Which is, if I was his pitching coach, that's what I'd tell him. I'd be like, look at where the ball is. Look at these places that you're getting hurt, and look at when you're good. You can make a lot better pitches. Maybe it's a focus issue. Yeah. But maybe it's a mechanical thing that's causing him to miss, 3-4 inches high, 3-4 inches outside, get too much plate, so there's always, and then if it's fatigue, there's always so many factors that come into
and have a tipping.
Am I tipping? And it's all, and that's like, I've talked about this before, but it's just a razor thin edge of a player being a great major league player and one little tiny thing being off and sucking, like borderline getting sent down. And that's what's so difficult about the game. And I don't miss trying to be like being in his shoes and trying to figure it out at all. Not one bit.
Yeah. And his whole thing is don't walk guys. That was the key to him, is his improvement. When he got sent down to AAA, the World Series year, he came back. In his head, he was like, attack hitters, be aggressive all the time. Do not give free passes. So that's his goal every year. Come in and reduce the walks to almost nothing. Go at guys, let the defense work behind you. But they were hitting balls hard to where the defense was not today. And he's missing. Like, I'm looking at like the Jazz Chisholm, the last hit he gave up
right
for
down
the
middle, yeah.
Cutter, 88-6, right over the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
After ball in the dirt on 1-0, on the first pitch, rather.
Yeah, and I think you can also watch when AJ's locked in and things are going his way, that ball gets fouled off into the net. Like it's kind of a combination of maybe you're not hiding the ball as well, maybe there's not the same life on the pitch, and you're missing middle. It takes a lot of things for things to go as bad as they're going for him right now. But you can watch film. I'm going to look at it today. I didn't really have time, but
yeah,
you can find something little, and this is what a good pitching coach does. It's like, maybe his stride is 3 inches toward the first base batter's box, and normally he's straight toward the plate. So you see something that small, and that little tiny change causes him to have to fly back open to get back centered. And now you show the ball for an extra, split second, and that little split second winds up, all of a sudden you give up 12 runs or whatever he's given up, and your mistakes are hittable now. And there's always just these fine little things, but I mean. For me, it's like if I'm him, I just keep chucking it, and I just kind of dial in and focus and say, this is where I'm getting hurt, and I'm going to make pitches. And his logic of not walking guys, it plays because his stuff's so good. He's throwing 95 with cut left-handed.
Yeah. The previous batter was Avisal Garcia, and he got ahead of him on a called strike, 84-6 cutter that was actually right out of the zone and middle up. It was also up, waist high. Then he comes back with a cutter. The first was a 95 fastball. I'm sorry. Comes back with an 84-6 cutter that was almost the same place. It was outside, but again, it was belt high, and it got in the zone just enough. It was over the outer edge of the plate, and he drove it.
If that ball's 2 inches lower, it's probably ground ball to shortstop.
I'm looking at, he struck out Fortes before that. Yuli Gurriel started the inning with a line drive to Ronald Acuna, 352 line drive. That was, I'm just looking at these pitches. That was, again, there was a 95-9. It was 1-1. He threw a ball, 4-seam fastball, 94-5. Out of the zone, way out of the zone and up. Then he fouled off one. Then he comes back with a 95-9 4-seamer that was belt high over the outer half of the plate. Now, all these are belt high, man.
That's from just a quick glance, that's what I kind of keyed in on, was just the height of his pitches.
Yeah.
It's like when you throw 95 lefty and you're at the top of the zone, you're going to get a lot of swing and misses and foul balls. When you got that cutter and you're at the bottom of the zone, you're going to get your ground balls. But belt high without, any sink or depth to it, that's where those ground balls turn into line drives. And, the hitters are able to lift that and level it out and get those knocks that they've been getting off them.
Not to dwell everything on how it ended, because it was a terrible ending, but it was a good series still until that one inning. But I thought the most encouraging thing today was a shame the rain delay. It was a 3-hour rain delay. It's a shame because Kyle Wright was pitching well again. And has really looked good since he came off the IL, struggled in that first start, and he's looked good since. He went 3 innings today, gave up 2 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts in 3 innings. So that was very encouraging. And then McHugh, too, in his second outing, or what, I guess that's third outing now since he came off the IL. 2 innings today, 3 hits, no runs. He looked really good. So they're getting him back at the right time. And, man, they couldn't get Izzy Iglesias starts a minor league rehab assignment tonight. Couldn't have come at a better time because they have got to get him back.
Right.
Rysel, what did I say? Rysel Iglesias starts a minor league rehab. He's been out since the last week of spring training with the shoulder inflammation. He'll start a rehab thing tonight, and I would say after the way Minter's pitching right now, they might maybe reduce that by one appearance, however many. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me. At no later than right when they get back from this 6-game road trip, but maybe even during Miami series down there after this, maybe goes out and throws one, comes back and throws. Yeah. And I'd say they give him 2 at least, though. So probably when they come off this thing and come back here, we'll probably see him. But yeah, they got to get him right because they really McHugh getting him back is huge, but they got to get their closer. They've done this without Rysel, and they did a great job. But I think the key guys are showing signs of, and they pitched an awful lot. Their key guys have pitched an awful lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it with Chavez too. How he started off the season, and then those innings kind of piled up on him. He's had a rough couple, but I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time giving into fatigue when I look back at how we used to pitch out of the pen.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten rest, Yeah.
I
mean, the only guys that you could have even seen maybe said pitched too much early were Dylan Lee and Chavez because they pitched like 10 times apiece in maybe the first 19 games.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you get up to 50% of the games, it's a bit much.
Yeah.
But he's rested them since then. Chavez had his blip and it's looked okay since, but Dylan Lee really never had, he had one bad outing, but he looked good today. I think he's done a good job of resting the rest of them, but they're right at that, pushing the envelope on that. And by the way, when they come back from the 6-game road trip, they got Baltimore, man. And that is not the pushover it's been in recent years.
It's nice when teams kind of start turning that around. I mean, the just yearly rebuilds that just go round and round and round, and teams never seem to get better. When you finally start to see a team come around, I'm always just happy for their fan base.
The rough thing is you're in the middle of this brutal stretch right now. You're only halfway through it because you've got the 6-game road trip and a 3-game Baltimore series before you have your next day off, which is on the 8th. So it's a good thing for them that the starters are all starting to step up and go deeper into games. That's going to help because early on that wasn't the case when they were piecemealing it, using the rookies, using the prospects in there. And, and even Fried had a bad outing before he went on the IL. I mean, short outing, I should say. So that's going to help a lot. They can get into a normal use pattern with the relievers, and you get Iglesias back, move Minter back down to a setup role and fix whatever he needs to fix.
If you check back in Minter in August, I'm sure he's fine. I mean, he's got to fix it. You want to fix it as soon as possible, but I'm not worried about him long term. It's probably just something really small he's doing. I think taking the pressure of getting out of that role will help a lot. I mean, there's nothing worse than when you're not at your best and you just are the best reliever on the team and wind up having to close. I mean, that's a really tough position to be in.
Yeah. Before they imploded in the 9th inning, before Minter imploded in the 9th inning, I was going to ask you, because today was one of those days. It's a weekday. It's a chilly, rainy day here in Atlanta, and 3-hour rain delay. And it's not like during the pandemic year. The only good thing about the pandemic baseball was they banged these games quickly because they didn't want guys hanging out. And it's also a little harder than it's been in the past because
with the 2
only
games.
two series against each team. Your divisional opponents, 2 home and 2 road series instead of 3. Right. So you can't be as quick to bang a game if you they're only coming back one time. You don't want those doubleheaders to stack up, and you don't want to. If the Marlins happen to be coming back next time when there's not a good forecast. So it's not as easy in the early season to bang games as they used to be. So, but I wanted to ask you when you were playing, what typically would happen during such a long rain delay?
Eat food.
Yeah. Especially for a pitcher, right? You don't
I think, you're doing something. That's players, I think, generally would, minus the difficulty of having to play a doubleheader later on or something. We'd always rather you just banged it quick.
Yeah.
There's never been a game get banged, and it wasn't like a last day of school vibe in the clubhouse. Let's get out of here. Because nobody wants to sit around for 2, 3, 4 hours and wait for a game and try to loosen their body back up. And when you're on that unknown clock, you can't even time it to where you're going to feel good going into the game and do your stretching and stuff. So, there's a lot of guys trying to move and stay loose and maybe swing in the cage, do tubing stuff, stretching.
Yeah.
You're trying to do whatever you can, but it's just basically, you're sitting around waiting, getting stiff, and hoping that they announce it pretty soon that the game's going to start. And, the worst thing is when you're a reliever, you usually don't know if the starter's staying in the game or not.
Right.
And so you could be started, you could find out 20 minutes before you're in the game and you run down to the pen and start warming up. But just what that does to you mentally kind of throws you off.
But once you get past like an hour, you pretty much know that
the starter's out. Yeah.
Right. But you don't know when the game's going to start. You don't know if
it's going to be
45 minutes or if it's going to be an hour and 45 or if they're going to play at all. A lot of times you don't really have a good idea. I guess it's really, I know it's changed a lot because there's still the card games like there used to be, but not as much as there used to be. And I know if it's anything like pregame, what a majority of guys are doing pregame is they're in their phones.
Yeah.
And that didn't used to be the case, man. For guys like who are as old as me that have been around clubhouses as long as I've seen a complete change of from when you were pitching at the early part of your career, at least before smartphones became so prevalent. And even after smartphones were first introduced, guys like Bobby Cox, and I'm sure other managers too, didn't allow them in the clubhouse. When guys came in, they had to turn their phones off or put them away.
Oh, if your phone even rang in the clubhouse, it was like you're going to kangaroo court.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first rules was no phones in the clubhouse. If you wanted to text, if you wanted to make a call, you go out in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And that was just how it was. And nobody really had a problem with it. We didn't have a lot going on our phones. You could play that snake game.
Right.
But, how long are you going to play that? Other than that, there wasn't all this social media and keeping up with people and just general, internet addiction that's prevalent, today's world. That was a major change. I remember Jordan Schaefer asked me to go out and eat with him in 2009, and I didn't have an iPhone yet. So I didn't really catch the appeal, but we go sit at some bar in Philly and he just looks at his phone the whole time right next to me. I said, what is this? Why are we even doing this together? But that was just kind of like a preview of what was to come.
Yeah. We were in San Diego standing in the clubhouse, in the middle of the clubhouse, Bowman, Toscano, and I talked to Bo. I said, Bo, look around the clubhouse right now. There was I counted 18 guys. I said, look around the clubhouse right now. And he looked. There was at one point, there was a golden tee machine going. So there were 2 guys playing golden tee.
Yep.
All the other 16 guys, every one of them, without exception, there were TVs going, but every one of them was looking at their phone, doing something on their phone at that time. Everybody in the clubhouse. And that wasn't uncommon. That's pretty much common when
that's what it is.
Like at a home clubhouse, there's only a few guys in there usually when we're in there early because they got all the places they can go. The Braves got a golden tee machine back in one of the lounge areas. They got several different rooms they can go in. So a lot of them hang out there rather than be out in the main part of the clubhouse where we are, during our hour. So they wait until we leave to go talk to Snit and then they come in the clubhouse. But we can't see them as much, but on the road, they're all there in the main clubhouse. So there's only one other area, the dining room. That's it. Right. That's it. So we see them. You get to see what they do. And that's just shocking how much that's changed. And Toscano, who's a young guy, he's only done this for about 5 years, 4 years, something like that. And he goes, did it used to be different? We were like, yeah, man, the clubhouse used to be, it sounded like a bar.
Yeah.
Guys were yelling, cussing at each other, busting balls and shit. It was totally different. Yeah. It's quiet in there now, other than you'll hear one guy talk loud or yell at something that happened on the phone. On the TV or the Golden Tee in San Diego. But, it's quiet for the most part.
Yeah, it's so much harder to build that culture and connection between teammates because of that. It also used to be after games.
Yeah.
I got called up with Seattle, and we'd have the whole team in the sauna after the game drinking beers.
Yeah. Which
I'm not saying was a smart move.
Right.
But it was, all the hooting and hollering and shit talking and ribbing each other. That kind of is what got you through the season. And I feel like I kind of played in the last generation of that, 2010, 11, 12 with the Braves. As soon as you walked into the clubhouse, you were on your toes, waiting for somebody to start taking shots at you. And that's what made it fun. That's what, for me, that's what made me feel a part of the team. I don't know if you ever noticed, but I got one ear that's smaller than the other. Can't really see it. Hinsky picked up on that like day 2, and so he just
like
he'd
Stephen
bring
Colbert.
yeah, he'd bring that up. I mean, every chance he got. But you whatever flaw you have in the
Yeah.
clubhouse, it's out there in the open. That's probably going to be your nickname, and it just keeps everybody humble. You feel part of the group, and it's fun. But so I really struggled with that when I went to Oakland, and that's what it was. It was just everybody on their phones.
Right.
And I thought I was going to Oakland. They're known for the craziest clubhouses, wild scene. And you've seen all the videos on Moneyball and all that. None of it. It was just guys on their phones or doing their own thing. And that's one of the biggest changes in the game. And really, I mean, I wish these guys got to experience how fun it could be.
Right. Right. And I should point out, I'm not just saying it's the Braves, because it's every team.
It's every team.
Yeah. So it's not like a negative for the Braves. I mean, that is the culture right now.
That's just what it is.
I mean, we all spend so much time on our phones, and that's the players the players as much as anyone. But yeah, like you said, I think it would just been so much more fun being in the clubhouse back in the day, where everybody was just on each other and everything. They were, not in their phones. But cultures change, times change, and it's an addiction, no doubt. But it's just the clubhouse that you have to talk in a low tone when you're in the clubhouse now. If you're just talking like Bo and I are talking, you got to keep it down to low tone, like you're in a library.
Yeah,
or people can hear you, and you're like, you don't want people to hear you because it's their clubhouse, not ours. We're guests, so you don't want people to catch you, hear you talking at all. You want to be just a fly on the wall, and don't be seen, not heard. So
yeah,
you got to keep
it
down.
Sad. It's sad for me because those were the best. That's what I miss is the clubhouse.
Yeah,
I don't miss going out there and pitching with the game on the line and not being able to sleep till 4 a.m. that night because I'm still so amped up from this stressful situation, and I got to do it again tomorrow. We got a day game. I miss walking into the clubhouse and have 25 guys to laugh with and get through a long season with, and the games are something that you have to do, but the games aren't fun. They're stressful.
Right.
The rest of it's fun. The plane rides. I would assume the plane's still pretty fun place to be because there's no internet.
Right.
And if there is, it sucks. So now what do? Everybody gets together and, has a drink or laughs or does whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's what I miss most. So I wonder what these guys are going to miss most.
Yeah, I'm told that it is still the plane is still not raucous, but it is still a lot more card games in the back and all that. And guys are talking more and all that. But yeah. And the young guys, I mean, they don't know what they're missing. They don't know what it was like. So it's not like, they're missing out on anything because it's never been like that with them. So their whole professional career from minors to now has been.
That's what it's been.
Yeah. So
I would say, though, that's probably part of why you see the performance getting so high is because, that, like I said, we were drinking beers in the sauna.
Yeah.
After a game. And it was the clubhouse didn't empty out for hours after the game when I first came into it. There was always 3 or 4 guys finish up their dinner, crack open a beer, and just sitting around together, talking shop, telling stories. And if you left the field at midnight, there were still 2 or 3 other guys leaving with you. Now, after games, it's like if they don't have a workout to do, shower and get out. Yeah. And it's just it just empties right out. But they don't go out either. Guys don't go out and party because of camera phones. They can't be out drinking and doing all this stuff after games. So they go home, they play some Call of Duty or whatever they play, and they're in bed they're asleep by 12:30. And totally overall, that's a lot better for an athlete. It's not as much fun. I could promise you, I think we had a lot more fun. But as far as your body and recovery and everything, playing a little Call of Duty and going to bed at 12:30 or drinking beers till 4 a.m. That's why you see guys performing so much physically.
Yeah, they're not dragging ass when they get to the ballpark the next day like they used to.
No.
Like some of them used to.
And then imagine if you had a cheat code like a greenie, how hard you could push it and still feel great the next day. Long term, it's not a good plan, but those guys weren't getting cheated.
Yeah, I've told this story about the '97 Marlins when Darren Dalton came over, was traded over there at the deadline, and they had that, which at the time was a clubhouse culture that, as he called a team meeting, like the first road trip, he'd been there 2 or 3 days. He called a team meeting, and they had a bunch of big personalities on that team. The Bobby Bonillas, Kevin Browns, Al Leiters, people like that. And he called a team meeting, Moises Alou, and Darren Dalton said, just so you guys know, this place is viewed as a country club around baseball. And said, you guys will never win a world championship because it's like a country club. Because everybody would get done with the game, they'd leave, they'd scatter, go their own ways. nobody got there really early, all that stuff.
Playing golf, yeah.
He changed the culture like that. And like you were talking about hanging out in the hot tub afterwards, in the training room afterwards. They all started hanging out for like 2 hours after the game, sitting around drinking beers in the training room, sitting in the hot tub and everything. It changed overnight.
Yeah.
And that team went on to win the wild card in the World Series that year in '97. And most of the guys on that team will say they would have never done it without Dalton.
Yeah, and I just feel like the more time you spend away from the stress of baseball, whether that's before the game or after it, the more time you spend bonding like that, the more you care about each other when you go on a game. You know, like if this guy's one of your best friends in life and his runners are on second and third, you're up 8-0.
Yeah.
You're still pitching like it's the World Series. And you should do that anyway, and most guys do, but it's a different gear when you care about the human, you know, when it's one of your best friends.
Yeah. Just getting back to, we talked about Iglesias is going to be back within a week, I would say. We're also getting a lot closer with Michael Harris. He started his rehab assignment yesterday at AAA Gwinnett, and I think he'll join the team during this trip, and that's going to be big. Obviously, they've really done a great job filling in him for center. Because if you thought if you would have said when he went on the IL that he was going to be out 3 weeks, you'd have said they were in trouble because they're going to lose a lot with Harris. But Hilliard's done a terrific job filling in for him. But when you add Michael Harris back to the mix, if you, like I was talking to Chipper, you move Hilliard to left field, even if it's a platoon. But when Hilliard's in left field, when he's in the game, you're going to have the best defensive outfield in the majors with Hilliard,
hands
Michael
down.
Harris, and Ronald Acuna.
Hands down.
I mean, that's as good as it gets right there. That's 3 guys with terrific range, great arms, can cover everything. I mean, and the way Hilliard's hitting right now, there's also 3 really good hitters if he keeps it up.
I like what Chipper said about him too, making more contact.
Yeah.
You know, that there's a few too many swings and misses, but man, I just watch that guy. I watch him move. I watch his swing. I watch everything he does. And it's like if something clicks, this guy's an all-star.
I mean, you build a guy in a baseball lab.
That's him.
It's him.
That's
He's like
what I want.
6'5", 235, runs like a deer. His swing, it looks effortless when he makes contact and hits at 450 feet. I mean, he's tooled up, as Snit says. He's tooled up.
And that's where, you know, the mental side of it all comes. Like if you threw Chipper into that body right now.
Yeah. He's 29, but he's just starting to really come into his own. I mean, he had a couple of minor league years where he had like 42 homers between AAA and the Rockies, 7 in the majors, 35 in AAA. Had a couple of years where he stole over 30 bases. I mean, he could do it all. Yeah. If he puts it together, the Braves got a steal of a trade because they didn't give up hardly anything to get him. And he's under control for 4 years, including this one.
Everything I watch him do is, I mean, like you said, he's tooled up.
So you get him back, you get Harris back, then it's going to press this. It's going to maybe put a little more urgency on the Arcel Ozuna situation because everybody's been talking so much about Ozuna because he's just off to a dreadful start. And when you get Harris back, Hilliard's not the guy to go now. It's going to be interesting. I think you could still, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to do it on that one because they don't have to yet. You can still move another guy. They still got one more guy that can move down without having to be a key guy. But then you're going to get Darno back. Obviously, when he comes back, all you do is move Trump down. But Darno takes up a lot of those DH at bats. And that's all Ozuna is in this case, especially if you get Hilliard. Ozuna's never going to see left field. So it's like, okay, then you're going to have Darno taking up a lot of DH at bats. So at that point, you're going to have to look at the numbers and see what you think of Ozuna and whether you see any signs of him turning it around and maybe make that call that everybody's been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like it's getting close. It's almost just he's so deep into this that I don't think he turns it around without a change of scenery, without a fresh start, without a reset. And then, I understand the Braves fans' frustration, but once you start getting booed on top of it,
pretty mercilessly.
Yeah, I mean, it's on its way to the box now. It's one thing when you get booed after you strike out, bases loaded, but you're getting booed first inning of a 0-0 game with nobody on, no outs. That makes it even tougher to get out of.
I don't know that I've ever heard a player being booed by his team's fans on the road like I have him. Braves fans in Kansas City, and there were a lot of them, booed him. San Diego, there were plenty there too, booed him. But in Kansas City, it was really audible through anybody watching on TV heard it. So, I mean, yeah, the situation has reached a tipping point, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of the boos, the reason you don't see that much, because the majority of the boos aren't really about his performance. I don't think it's performance plus the domestic violence thing and a DUI. I mean, it's And like we've said before, if he was hitting 350 with 6 homers right now, it's you forgive a guy for a lot when they're performing.
There'd be plenty of people still upset that he's on the team after domestic violence and DUI.
Right.
But they would be far outnumbered, and you wouldn't hear those boos like if he's hitting.
Right.
I mean, because when he came back that year and started hitting a little bit, the boos kind of disappeared. We didn't hear him, and I was surprised how fast they disappeared. But when you couple the terrible performance with 2 ugly incidents off the field, that's tough to overcome, man. And now it's kind of cemented in the minds of a lot of people that just want him gone. It's going to have to do a whole shit ton to get past that with a lot of people.
Yeah, he's not showing a lot of signs of life.
No, he's hit a few balls to the track, but he's also hit a lot of dribblers in big situations and struck out in big situations, hit some pop-ups in big situations. So
the crazy thing is this team, what's their record right now? With
17 and 9 after today. Going into today, they were tied for second best record in baseball, behind only the Rays. So, I mean, despite they've played great against the teams they're supposed to beat, notwithstanding today. The only teams that they did not play well against or win series against were the Padres and the Astros, the good teams, the really good, especially the Astros. But I think this is going to be a nice early season gauge this weekend. 4 games against the Mets head to head. If one team loses, there's a good chance one team's going to win 3. I don't think it means a whole lot in the big picture, but at least it gives you a better gauge of where you stand against, especially the Braves are going to have their best 4 pitchers going.
Yeah, and if you go in there, like for me, you look at it as an opportunity to go in and send a message. I mean, the Mets are aware of what you did last year, but if you go in there and take 3 out of 4, I don't think it means a lot for the Braves, but it means a lot to the Mets. When you're chasing a team, and that's what used to always happen with us when we chase Philly. We were always nipping at their heels, and we go in there and get our asses kicked. They come to Turner Field and whoop our ass, and there's nothing more discouraging than that. If we went in and beat them, they still knew they were great. But when you're chasing a team, they whoop your ass.
Yeah. I shouldn't say the best 4 because I can't say that Bryce Elder is better than Kyle Wright. Bryce Elder's pitched great so far this year, though. But Kyle's pitched really well the last 2 times out. But the Braves have got, you're going with Fried, Strider, Charlie, and Bryce Elder. I think Elder's going to end up pitching. Scherzer, I think, will be they did TBD for the series finale, but that's the game Scherzer would should be eligible to come off, and I'm sure we'll probably see him. Yeah. So I think we're going to see their best. Braves are going to see their best starters as well. So it's going to be interesting. The Mets have not played good ball so far. They're okay, but not what they expected. But they're without their closer for the whole year, so they're certainly not going to feel sorry for the Braves.
No, but it is going to be huge getting Iglesias back.
Huge, and assuming he's anywhere near what he was last year after the trade deadline, because he was terrific. And it allows you to slot those other guys down where they probably belong.
Yeah, Cam was talking to me about it before we started, if it's like a closer thing for Minter. And I didn't want to give it credit when you said it on our last show. It's something about him just not being able to step into that closer role. But, it starts to become a thing when you struggle in it. And it's also, if you come in the 9th as a closer, you're facing whoever comes up. There's never that situation where, hey, this is a bad matchup in the 8th, and we're going to go with somebody else for the first out and then bring you in.
Right.
It's all you. And for me, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just bad timing for him and a bad time to slump. But at the same time, taking that pressure off when you are when you are struggling will be a good thing.
Everybody in the division, by the way, going into, I think a couple teams played tonight, I'm not even sure, but looking at the standings in the last 10, 4 of the 5 teams in the division are 5-5 in their last 10 right now. The Phillies are 7-3 in their last 10. But the Phillies are at 500 right now. So are the Marlins now.
And I'm not, it's funny because you brought up the Phillies last year, and I was just kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
But
they were below 500 a lot of the year last year.
They're in this division too. It's not just Braves and Mets anymore.
And they're getting Bryce back a lot earlier than we thought.
Yeah.
When the Braves play them up there, the Phillies are probably going to have Bryce because they're getting him back a lot sooner than expected because he's going to play first base.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Braves go up there, I think they're going to see him. That's huge. I mean, adding that back in the middle of the lineup. Their pitchers, if some of their stud pitchers have not pitched well early, but they're going to get it together, starters.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now the Braves 2.5 up on the Mets. Braves taking that 10-2 road record out. 10-2 on the road, 5-5 at home. One of those anomalies that'll straighten itself out, I'm sure. But
yep, yeah, it will.
So anyway, yeah, what a disastrous end to the. Relatively speaking, it's just baseball. It's not a disaster, but that's just a horrible way to end what had been a sweep where they would have felt so good on that plane ride going to New York after a sweep. I'm sure.
Isn't it crazy though? Everybody always says how hard it is to sweep a 4-game series,
and it is. No matter who you're playing,
no matter what, you could be up 4-0 in the ninth with your closer in and lose 5-4.
4-run lead, 3 outs away. Marlins showing no signs of life whatsoever. On a cold, dreary day when they sat around for 3 hours, you're 6 hours after the game started, and they mount this 5-run rally.
It's stupid. That's baseball. I mean, nothing sums it up more than that.
It's a unique game, man. Anyway, it's going to be a big series this weekend, and we'll talk to you guys from up there, or after we get back from up there, after I get back from up there. It's going to be a fun one, I think, this weekend. Hopefully the rain cooperates or the forecast cooperates because right now it's got rain in it for Friday and Saturday, which does not look good.
They don't need any more of that.
No. You spend a lot of rain delays, I'm sure, in New York, right? Seems like there's always one up there, this time of the year especially.
I felt like Turner gave us the most. Yeah, New York always had something.
Philly did.
New York, there's always some kind of delay. Philly, I mean, and that's, you asked about those clubhouses. I remember the clubhouses you were stuck in a lot,
at
during
the old
delays.
Ballparks.
Yeah. Yeah, but Philly had quite a few. New York seemed to always have, it's like every series you get some kind of late start or delay. But for me, I think at Turner Field, all those damn rain delays we had so many times playing that game, 11 o'clock at night, you're in the 5th inning.
Oh my God, they would start them so late, especially when Frank Wren was the GM. He would say, we got a window at 11. Went around for 4 hours.
That's everybody's least favorite phrase when you're sitting there, is we got a window.
You had that putting green at Turner Field, didn't you?
Yeah, but I didn't play golf back then.
Yeah. The John Smoltz, Greg Maddox, Tom Glavine addition to the clubhouse.
We'd all go into that was when Phil Falco was a strength coach. And, it's crazy. Even a strength coach can build chemistry, but you'd have 15 guys piled into that little office of his, just talking shop, waiting for the game to start.
Yeah. Yeah. The Golden Tee machine is pretty cool. I don't play golf either, but that Golden Tee machine it seems pretty realistic.
Guys love that thing.
Yeah. They're addicted to that thing, man. I was watching them in San Diego. We can't watch them in Atlanta because it's in a lounge, but in San Diego, it's right there in the clubhouse. So we're watching them, man. They get after it. Chavez is awesome at it.
I bet he is.
You should see him just nail like 20-foot putts. He's like, boom, boom.
Yeah. I think he probably has one. He has a shop in his house that's full of a golf simulator and video games and a bunch of old school custom cars. He probably spends a lot of time out there.
Jesse. All right. Well, we appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for watching us. And we'll do it again early next week after the Mets series.
All right.
7:55 is real. We are out. Thanks.